Okay, we're going to get started here. I'd like to first of all welcome you guys to the Operation and Public Safety Committee. Today is Tuesday, May 16th, and we got a full agenda today. So we're going to start off by calling roll call, please.
Thank you. Council President Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, all righty. Let's get started here. We got item number 3, which is the agenda approval. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moving to second in discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to item 4A, approval of the minutes of May 2nd.
Mr. Chair, I would move for approval of minutes for May 2nd, 2023.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Move on to item 4C, consolidation budget, and we have Michelle Ferguson.
Mr. Chair, I would move for payment of bills.
Okay, Michelle, could you hold on for a minute? We'll move on to item number B, payment of bills. Can I have a motion, please?
I thought I made the motion.
Got a motion second. All right, motion is second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Now, Michelle Ferguson.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm Michelle Ferguson, the Financial Planning Manager, and I will be presenting the first quarter budget adjustment of 2023. This budget adjustment is reflecting an overall increase of $21,479,680. Previously approved increases total $16,560,670, and adjustments that are pending approval by Council total an increase of $4,919,010. So the expenditure increases of $16.56 million that Council has previously include $4.76 million in grants. Those increases are for 2 grants that total $3.125 million for the Quiet Zone project. The city has been awarded $2.95 million from the Washington State Department of Commerce, which was approved by Council in December of 2022, and $175,000 from King County Metro Transit Department, which was approved by Council in March of 2023. The city was also awarded 2 grants from WashDOT's Highway Traffic Safety Improvement Program. One was for $785,000 for the 108th Avenue Southeast and Southeast 264th Street Compact Roundabout Project, and one was for $600,000 for the City Safety Road Diets Program, and Council approved both of these in March of 2021. There's also the city has been awarded a grant from the King County Flood Control District for $200,000 for the Lower Russell Habitat Area A project, which was approved by Council in November of 2022. And there are $49,000 in miscellaneous grants for the Finance Commerce Areages Grant, the Parks Public Defense Grant, and the Police is Washington Auto Theft Prevention Authority Grant. The other increases that Council has previously approved are all carry-forward budgets that total $11.8 million. There's one for $1.29 million for the facilities life cycle budgets. $297,000 will be carried forward in the facilities operating budget, and then $499,000 will be transferred from the facilities operating fund and into a project, and the $499,000 will then also be budgeted within those life cycle projects. There's also $3.69 million that will be carried forward for fleet vehicles in the fleet fund that have been ordered but not yet received by the end of 2022. This carry forward is a little bit higher than normal for the fleet fund, and that is because of all the extra funding that the fund received for ARPA. But so far, $1.2 million of this carry forward budget has already been spent in 2023. There's also a carry forward of $2.49 million for the Parks Department, and most of that, so $1.75 million of that carry forward is for the ARPA funded Building Resiliency Program, and the remaining items for about $500,000 are for the different things for items ordered or contract agreements that have not been completed in 2022, which include $150,000 for maintenance vehicles, $94,000 for tactical training, $300,000 for human services funding, and $128,000 for a mobile stage. And then another carry forward is going to be that $1.75 million for the ARPA building resiliency funds to move those from an operating budget into a project so they can be tracked a little bit closer. There's also $1.63 million for Parks life cycle carry forwards. $33,000 will be carried forward from the Parks Capital Resources life cycle operating budget, and then $798,000 will be transferred from that life cycle budget, and another $798,000 will be budgeted within a project. $870,000 will be carried forward for the 2022 school zone funded car per officer vehicles that have been ordered but not yet received. And then there are also $62,000 in recycling grant carry forwards, which are received on a fiscal year instead of our calendar year, as well as finance carry forwards of $9,000 for items ordered but not yet delivered in 2022. The remaining adjustments that total $4.92 million in this amendment that council has not yet approved include a budget change of $4.05 million for the 2023 salary and benefit adjustments based on updated ASME and Teamster contract agreements and cost of living adjustments. There's also a budget change of $400,000 that is needed for the graffiti removal project. $200,000 will be transferred from the ARPA project, and then another $200,000 will be budgeted in the project. A budget change of $190,000 is needed for the elected official salary and benefit adjustment that was approved by the Salary Commission. And a budget change of $150,000 is needed for the PEG fees project. These are fees that the city receives quarterly from Comcast for their use of the public rights of way. A $122,000 budget change is needed for ECD's comprehensive plan. So the funds will be transferred out of ECD's operating budget and then budgeted in a project. And then a budget change of $22,000 is needed to remove the cost allocations that have been charged to the Special Assessment Debt Service Fund and to also correct the negative fund balance that was caused by charging that fund. And last on this list is a decrease of $12,000 for the closing of 2 IT projects. Are there any questions?
Well, with no questions, Mr. President, I would, hearing that fine, what, did I do something wrong?
I'm sorry, Councilman McCoy.
There was a question?
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, thank you, Council President. Thank you, Michelle, for, the question is about the PEG adjustment. That is the revenue we will be in?
We're going to budget the revenue and the expense.
Okay.
So we've been getting that quarterly for the last few years.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, Councilman McCoy. I'll ask for a motion, please.
Yes, and I apologize, Satwinder. Sorry about that. So hearing that fine presentation by Michelle, I would move to adopt ordinance number 4465, consolidating budget adjustments made between January 1st, 2023 and March 31st, 2023, reflecting an overall budget increase of $21,479,680.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, item number D, Office of the Washington State Auditor. Megan.
Good afternoon. Megan Marks, Finances, Accounting, and Reporting Manager. It's the first time I got to stand before you. So I am presenting the engagement letter with the Washington State Auditor. This engagement will be for the fiscal year 22, ending, of course, in December 31st. And it will be for the financial statement, accountability, and single audits that the city goes through every year. Single audit is only for entities which receive more than $750,000 in grant funding. So they'll be starting that work soon. And so coming into the budget piece, we are going to request an increase of $28,000 to cover the costs of the increase from what we anticipated. I will tell you that we did ask them to explain the increase, and we did receive a revised engagement letter just the other day for $190,000 versus $202,000. We are going to continue to request the same amount of increase of $28,000, just in case. But they did explain and also lower their original projection of 202,000. And with that, I will answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Question, it says plus travel costs and other expenses. Do we have a historic idea of what the travel costs are, or?
You know, I haven't seen what they were over the past few years. Of course, as much as possible was done virtually, so I'm anticipating to be very minimal. In fact, they asked whether we wanted more in-person or virtual for us. I told them essentially we're going to play it by ear. A lot of things can be done virtually, and very minimal things will require them to come in. Also, I believe this team is based out of the Kent office, so it would be minimal mileage regardless.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, no one stood up? You good, Councilmember Lama?
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor and the finance director to sign the engagement letter with the Office of the Washington State Auditor for the 2022 audit.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you, Megan. Okay, we're going to move on to item E, and this is P-HOC. We talked about this here during our retreat. So, Julie, you got more information for us?
We do. Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. I am here today clearly representing the team who is in the audience, so they're all watching you. Sorry about that. We're here today to talk about P-HOC. I think the last you heard is we were looking at planning, and now we've done some work here, and I appreciate you indulging us and letting us take a little bit of a chunk of time today. If we can hold questions, please, till the end. I think we've got a lot, and I hopefully will answer as much as we can, and then I literally have a lot of subject matter experts here. So tonight I'll be presenting, Finance Director Paula Painter is going to present, and then I do have the core planning committee for the P-HOC group, just in case something's a little bit more technical that I can't answer. So that is available for you guys today. So we are going to talk a little bit about why we're at such a critical need and a point now to really look at our infrastructure, especially for maintenance support and operations. So I'll take you back a little bit. Also want to share a little bit more about the project history. We have had significant starts and stops, and I think that plays into why we're making a recommendation to you all today. We are going to share and give you a sneak peek of the current design on where we've gotten to date, so that'll be fun, and then options and next steps. No formal decision from council today, but I am kind of looking for, a head nod. Are we comfortable moving forward and so on? So that's kind of towards the end. So taking us way back, I told you I would. I'm going to go back 30 years. And this shows somewhat of the growth in the needs. So the chart on the bottom, which that is a little fuzzy, I hope you can see it. So it starts in 1993, so a 30-year window, goes all the way to 22, using OFM population numbers. And I'm just basically demonstrating the growth that we've seen in our own community, which you have been aware of just with all the plans we've been doing. But in this particular snapshot, our population in Kent has increased almost 65,000 and almost by half. And that's all of our maintenance teams responding to increased public service and demand and so on. At the same time, recognizing we couldn't go fully back all the way to 30 years. Data gets a little sketchy, but we did go all the way back to the year 2000 to try and understand on just the maintenance personnel that are using the shop's facilities or maintaining in a public service way. We have added almost 54 career staff professionals in this area. Wow, freak me out, Kim. And so Public Works added 41 FTEs and Parks added 13 in this same kind of time frame. Uh-oh, don't freak me out. And I do want to point out that this does not include part-time. We'll talk a little bit more about part-time. Both Public Works and Parks uses part-time to supplement their workforce. So when we have career staff already bogging down some of our maintenance facilities, you bring in those seasonal temp staff, it almost compounds in certain times of the year. And so we'll talk more about that. The little stars down here somewhat represent the different movements we've had over the years on P-HOC. And so I am going to talk about each one of those stars, and you can see we've had starts, and then we stop, and then we start, and then we stop. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. So you're all familiar with Russell Road. That's our primary maintenance shop facilities. It's 16,636 square feet, constructed in 1968. So it is a 55-year-old facility, so super old out there. Like I mentioned, we have about 150 employees, somewhat crammed in there, trying to do their work. And again, this does not include our part-time temp staff. Let's see if I can do my little, oh, that's, whoops, let me try this. Oh, there we go. Oh, geez. Hold the phone. Okay. If you can see here, we have on the top, those are kind of just maintenance storage bays. This little yellow square way over here, that's Riverbend. Riverbend uses their maintenance there. We have the primary shops facility here, and then we just recently put in some trailer and some other things here. And then, of course, parking around, and we've, as you all know, constantly creep into the park space because we have to just keep somewhat expanding, and we're somewhat bursting at the seams. I don't want to make it seem like Russell Road doesn't need work. It does. From, council retreat, it needs just over 5.5 of just predictive renewals and observed efficiencies. But it is going to need to have some significant work at some point in the future. We do have 2 trailers we added again for Riverbend and for additional staff out there. So who would stay at this facility if we do build the full vision that we want to do out at Keehawk? Is the fleet mechanics will stay down there, fueling will still stay at Russell Road shops, our parks crew, which is our downtown or West Hill crew, and then our special operations team will stay down there, Riverbend Golf will stay there, and then just general wash bays and so on will stay. Up at the East Hill shops, which is the Keehawk site, which of course is Kent East Hill Operations Center. In late 2004, Parks needed a presence up on the East Hill, and so we went ahead and installed some trailers, which many of you have toured. Thank you for that. And they have been in these trailers ever since 2004, again, somewhat crammed. What prompted a lot of the conversation is these trailers are at their extended useful life and probably beyond. You got to be careful sometimes where you're walking. It's not obviously the condition we want our maintenance teams in. Public Works also has some presence out there. They pop in and out. They also have their material bins in storage on this site. So it is utilized, obviously not to the full potential of the site. I want to bring up police evidence because in the new plan in Keehawk, not necessarily the original plan, but the new plan, we are looking at trying to support our police department in some of their evidence storage. So it's somewhat of a new thing that I want to make sure you're aware of. Currently, right now, our police department splits their evidence storage and demands and filings among all of these different places up here between their headquarters, City Hall, impound yard, Connex boxes, West Hill substations. So they have to go everywhere to try and find evidence. I think you've all heard that we are just constantly taking in more and more public rules, and record retention is making us potentially keep evidence up to 99 years and sometimes honestly for like life of the term, and so it's a big problem. Last 2 police department accreditation cycles, their evidence storage has been brought up. It is something that's top on obviously the chief's mind, it's on our minds as facilities and so on. We do have some space at Keehawk for them to begin addressing some of this, so maybe we can reduce some of that. But they will still need additional space at City Hall when we begin to look at improvements here. And so I don't want to make it seem Keehawk is the ultimate solution, but it definitely is giving us some breathing room moving forward. So taking it back now on the history of the property, way back in 1999, we did buy this property, and so you'll see we've got it outlined here in this kind of orange pattern, and it's right off of 248th and 124th, right across the street from Clark Lake. So you'll see there's a little bit of property. That's the Ruth acquisition we just did, and then of course Martin Sortune and then Wilson Playfield's up. So it's been here since 1999. We bought that at the time for $2.8 million. It was previously the Columbia Greenhouse site, and we also did some just additional improvements on site for about another $1.1 million. Moving along, we in 2003 we got the conditional use permit and SEPA recommendations that helped inform the 2008 master plan, and we had this entire site plan drawn and ready, 95% complete plans, and then obviously the big recession. and other issues hit Kent, we had to pull back. But this plan is really important that we want to make sure that you are kind of connecting is this plan is what we're following right now. And you'll see there's a purple building with a little yellow kind of border around it. That's the warehouse shops facility that we are building at this point in this almost exact same footprint, which we'll show. I do want to just point out, we'll talk about it again, the building on the right that's red. In some of the new design, why we're coming back forward, we are looking at potentially merging these two now, and believe we definitely have looked at some efficiencies there, and we're going to talk with you about that. Wagner Architects is the one that built this original 2008 plan, and they are actually the same architect that we have on site for this plan that we're working on right now. We kind of had a chuckle over it. They're probably hoping we build it too, because we've all been working on it, for all this time. So we were trying to think like back then, we thought it was around 60 million. If you extrapolate that all the way up into this, kind of time frame, in order to do something like this, it probably would have been 120 million. So one of the things we definitely are looking at is if we constantly delay, it will continue to increase the pricing, and that's just something to be aware of. In 2010 and 2011, we installed and designed the new water tank out there with, obviously wrapping, and so it was a 4 million gallon tank. It serves obviously the Keyhawk site, but the surrounding neighborhoods to the west, that was around 5 million. And then what we're calling phase 1 was all of the siting, grading, and utilities using, again, that original 2008 master plan. That was all done between this time period, and the site is rough graded and prepped, and at that time it was about 6.1 million. And what's important to note here is, we always talk about we don't know what's underground, it could be a risk and so on. Well, obviously we know we're the ones that, worked on phase 1, which was great. And so if you think about just adding up all of the investments we put on this Keyhawk site to date, you're looking at almost 15 million, and we still don't have, a nice facility for our maintenance teams out there. And so shifting to current design, one of the things we did is you can see the new facility, which is that big white box in the middle, is we're still building it, still has the same kind of foundational footprint that we have on there. What we did during design, not we, I don't want to take the credit, it was the team that kind of worked through this, is with a little bit of extra design, enhancement of a second floor, we don't have to build the future admin building. And what we've done now is we've combined administration with the maintenance teams that they're directly supporting, and so it creates this a lot more of a fluid engagement than having to run across, to talk to your leaders and so on. And so by doing that, we've saved future need as well. A new facility, which I guess you can't see. I guess if you turn around, you can see it. Thought it'd be interesting to see what the admin building would have looked like. That's down below, that little box pop out. We are not building that, and that facility itself is probably anywhere from 20 to 40 million, depending on when we would be able to build something like that. Who stays if we are able to build the full facility in its entirety the way that we're looking at? All public works divisions would transfer from Russell Road up to East Hill, except for fleet, the signal crew, and the sign crew. Parks will obviously stay, but move out of those clunker trailers and shift into their space, and then police storage and some drop-in space for them as well. So I want to make sure that everybody knows, including the public, we really did focus on building as much bare bones as we possibly could. It may seem fancy on the photo. It's a metal siding facility. It's a pole structure. It's not brick facade and all that kind of thing. We are not necessarily searching for any type of certification in energy efficiency, but we are top of mind looking at a lot of things, especially with the new energy expectations coming out with the building of this size. So we are, obviously making sure the roof is wire ready so we can submit for future grants for solar power. We have insulated windows. We are required to put in a certain % of active EV stations, as well as some wired for future, automatic light sensors to trigger when lighting. So it definitely will focus on bringing energy consumption down. We have designed it now with the new city space standards that we'll be using with all city facilities. So anytime we do a tenant improvement or things like that, these are the same standards. That's been some of the challenges. Professional office staff have just way different of a level than our maintenance teams do out in the field, and that's not necessarily what we all want in ways of equity for our team. We are utilizing, again, the same concrete foundation, so it's not like we're, expanding the footprint anywhere on site. We have to build somewhat of a second floor anyway, just for the larger bays that we have in there. We are recommending that we finish the second floor, which we'll talk about here in a second. There is a little bit of growth, definitely not growth for 20 FTEs or 40, but just in case we have some coming in, we can look at that. And then, of course, we will be relooking at Russell Road because that frees up some space at Russell Road. This gives you a footprint schematic, and if anybody wants anything, I guess, a little bit more readable, happy to send you guys a copy of the PowerPoint. The current facility is just over 82,000 square feet. The first ground floor, which of course is something, is at 45,000. The purple, so let's see, the first floor is the first row, the second floor is the second row. The purplish color is the police department's space. They have ground floor space and mezzanine space. That kind of yellow-orange color is all public works space. Parks is green, which maybe this one behind you might be a little bit better on the color, but that's park space, and then all the white is common areas. And so what we did is we broke up all the square footage, gave that to our finance department to look at which sources could potentially fund which area, which Paula will talk about in a minute. So wrapping up, and then I'm passing it off to Paula. So City Council did, in this last budget process, approve $24.5 million for us to begin advancing the design and do construction as far as it would go, similar to like a parks master plan. If you can't do it all, you keep trying to phase. We did have council approve the architect's contract up to $2.4 million, and the architect's contract is for the full build out. If for whatever reason council's doesn't want to do that project will drop back down, that contract. There is a cross-departmental team that is working on this design. So Will Moore is our city facility superintendent. He's the project chair. We have Garen Lee, who's park operations, Dave Brock of Public Works, and then Assistant Chief Eric Hemmen.
Hey, Julie,
Need a break?
give a 5-minute recess,
Yes, absolutely.
That's okay.
Can you move?
All right.
Let me get through this. Yeah, I'll move it on.
I don't think we are. So there's two?
let's see, where was I? Oh, cross-departmental team. I just wanted to make sure that council was aware we have all appropriate parties playing a role in design and functionality and so on. So we're at this point now where we really are at a critical point where we have to make a call. Can we find the funds to do the real thing that we really think is the right thing to do, or do we hold? And unfortunately, I have to kind of somewhat pass that to you all. So we have two options somewhat ahead of us. Option one is we just stick with the 24.5 million and we take it as far as we can. And obviously that would get the whole first floor, which is kind of the original intent. We would still build restroom and locker facilities. There would definitely be a dramatic reduction in public works staff transitioning over, because that whole second floor with all the workspace, that would not be finished anymore, which would then keep the teams at Russell Road. And then we would hope, future funding could come for future phases. KPD, the police department, could still go and access for evidence storage, but we wouldn't be building the mezzanine on the top. We would definitely look at reducing the second floor as much as possible, so it's just kind of open, and then we could eventually utilize. And then, of course, just slimming down in general interior size. So the other thing that would happen, if we can still do this, we would still save the future admin building. Our concern is it's taken this long to get us to this point of something tangible where our teams could actually move in. If we wait, do we really have that ability in the future to look at this and kind of moving forward? And so I definitely just, I've gotten there okay to say it. I do speak for myself, Chad Buren, the Public Works Director, and the Chief of Police. Like, we're definitely in support of this and united. Like, we definitely need to do this for the teams. It will absolutely reduce barriers for us, allow us, way more effective and efficient ability to communicate and operate together. But it's not an easy decision, so we totally understand that. I think my only other reminder before I pass it off to Paula is to just kind of think through, this is a decision you're making for 50 years. So there'll be a payback term, of course, which Paula will talk with you about, but this decision now is supporting current maintenance operations staff, but as we'll have movement and we'll have some breathing room down there at Russell Road now if we do the full facility, where it's like we can all kind of take a breath and then actually have this. So I'm going to pass it off to Paula. She's going to talk you through some finance options we've been working with her, and then we've got the whole team here for any questions. Okay? All right, Paula.
All right, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Council President Boyce, members of City Council, Paula Painter, Finance Director. So Key Hawk, so we've got some decisions to make with Key Hawk. So we had a project that has been budgeted at the $24.5 million right now. And so there were various funding sources from criminal justice, Capital Resources Fund, Parks Capital, and our 3 utility funds, all that have made contributions to the current budget that we have right now. The new proposed budget is at $49.5 million, and so I had to make a bunch of assumptions. As you know, Julie was just saying that they still are trying to finalize some of the phasing and what it would look like. There's a lot of elements that go into the allocation of those dollars. It's going to depend on how many people are going there, how much space are they taking up, is it warehouse space, is it office space? So I had to kind of give a little bit of a swag. We had numbers that kind of ranged depending on how we looked at that. So I will say right now that the allocation of that $49.5 million will change, but by how much, I don't know. It seems to be a very good, safe look at this, not too leaning one way or the other with any given fund. The new allocation would then look at still the $2 million from criminal justice. That's what they have. We're not really going to have them look at debt service or anything, but then all of the other was allocated out between capital resources, parks, water, sewer, and drainage. So our two options is we could first look at what do we have available in fund balance that we might want to tap into. The other option is, do we want to issue debt service? So if you look at the chart on the left-hand side, you're going to see that the funds that we would be using in order to fund this would be these same funds, you can see there the left is showing the estimated beginning fund balance. That's for this year. The final numbers aren't done yet, so I can't give you those exact numbers, but it's a ballpark. But on the right-hand side, you'll see what they're required to have. Every fund at this point, with the exception to the sewer fund, has capacity to tap into their fund balance. I say that very cautiously at the moment. We'll talk some more about that, but they do have some capacity. Sewer fund, I do want to talk about that since I do plan on coming back to you with an amendment to one of our financial policies. So while we're looking at this, the sewer and drainage fund used to be one fund. In 2019, they were separated into two funds, and our policy was never updated to talk about any distinction between how we calculate the fund balance. The sewerage fund, the majority of the expenditure that's within the sewerage fund is what is going to King County wastewater. And really, we don't need to keep reserves for something that we clearly collect and pass straight through to King County. That really doesn't make a lot of sense. That would take that required reserve balance from 7.8 million down to 2.7 million. That does make a big difference. But again, still sewerage is the sewer fund itself is still pretty tight with its fund balance. Still, even with that change, wouldn't quite have enough to cover their share of that. My concern is if we start looking back to fund balances as they were back in 2009 through 14, we didn't have good policies in place at that time. And as an organization, we have worked really hard to preserve those fund balances. For one, we have learned that we don't know what is going to be in front of us and what decisions we have to make. And if we do tap into fund balance for these funds, what we're looking at is taking away future opportunity should we need it for other things, or should an emergency arise or another need come before us. So looking at those fund balances, although for the most part they could be an option, we'd have to work with the sewer fund. I really am not leaning that direction. If we do issue debt, and we assume that we issue the debt for the entire amount of the capital project, it would result in about $3 million a year in debt service. That $3 million a year in debt service would not be handled just by our general capital resources, general capital bucket, but instead it will be shared amongst all of these various funds between capital resources, parks capital, and our three utility funds. The utility funds at this current estimate would be covering just a little bit more than 50% of the overall debt service related to this, and our capital resources fund would be covering about $1 million of that debt service. I know over the years, I was just talking about the struggles we had with use of fund balance. Also, we had struggles with making sure we had appropriate capital funding available for our capital program. And over these years, you guys have set into place earmarks of dollars that will be used for IT capital, parks capital, and also street capital. So right there, those things will all be preserved without being touched by issuing debt and going out to do this work through capital funding. So that all said, one of the things that I also wanted to tap into, well, I think I've already covered, is that if you do tap into that fund balance, you do run the risk of having significant reductions in those fund balances, having negative impacts on any future projects that we may want to do, and then also not having those minimal reserves available. So I would be happy at this point to answer, oh, by the way, I don't remember if I talked about the annual debt service. The estimated amount is on the right-hand side for each of those funds.
Okay. Great presentation. I got a couple of questions before we go to my council member. what is our credit rating today, and doing this here bonding would have any impact to the credit ratings?
So our credit rating right now with Moody's is a AA2. It was just recently increased from a AA3. A lot of that increase had to do with the fact that we do have great reserves that are available to us should we need them. So because of that, by maintaining some of our reserves and looking at debt issuance, I don't see that being a negative impact on that. When we look at our Standard & Poor's credit rating, it is a AA+.
Okay. And what is so this will be additional, it'll be go this route, it'll be another
Yes.
$50 million in debt. How much debt do the city owe today, roughly?
Okay, so I'm going to give you 2000. I found this statistic very interesting, and I wish I had it for 2022 year end. But when you go back to looking at 2014, we were at $200 million in debt. Just
What year was that? What year was that?
2014, $200 million in debt.
Okay.
At 2021, we were at $111 million in debt. What I can tell you, 2022, that number has gone down again by at least $8 million. So we are continuing to see declines in those numbers. I just don't have the exact number right in front of me related to that.
Well, that's good.
And one of the things that I want to talk about too is we're going to see some bigger declines in the next 5 years. General obligation debt, those are the things paid for by general government. A lot of that will be paid, all of them practically will be paid off by 2028. We'll have one that'll be outlying that goes to 2037 or 2028, excuse me. We'll have one that'll go through 2037 with a decline in its annual payment by 50%, which we'll see in 2032.
Okay. I know we're going to talk more about it. I just think, my own personal opinion, if we're going to go this route, I prefer not using the fund balance because I think we need that flexibility, for the rainy days that will come. So I will lean strong on that side. But before I talk any more, I'm just going to start off with my council member. The first
Can
line
I
up
say
is-
one more thing before,
Please.
while I'm thinking of that? One of the things to note is we do have $24.5 million that is allocated to the project now. We will have to spend some of that because we need to spend some dollars now before we actually go out to bond issue. And we'll have the choice to either reimburse ourselves through the bond issue or choose to spend part out of the budget that already exists and part out of debt. So those are the decisions that are still left to be made.
Thank you, Paula. Councilmember Troutner, followed by Michelle.
Thank you, Council President. Paula, during our retreat, we talked about replacing a building and having the opportunity to, will you remind me what that was called?
The 6320 financing with NDC?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that something that we could incorporate this into an overall plan, or does this not qualify for something like that?
In this case, going the 6320 or NDC route doesn't make sense. We are already so far down the road with this project that if we were now to try to backtrack, we lose some of the benefit we would have gotten from the very beginning.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Michelle.
Thank you, Council President. Okay, how long is this debt, or how long would it take us to pay it off?
It would be 30-year debt.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Core.
Question's been answered. Thank you.
All right. Just like a house, I guess, 30-year debt, right? Hey, any other questions from my council members? I know they're not looking for an answer today, but I think Julie mentioned something earlier. I guess I have a question before I do that. In this new facility, are there any space for the community? If we want to have a community meeting, did we think about
I
that?
believe no, right? Unless we want to use, looking at it, maybe a lunchroom, but not like a formal rentable, space.
So my question, can there be a space for community to have meetings and stuff?
You do? Okay.
So we are kind of short on.
We
community
will
space
explore.
generally.
Well, I think that's important, right? We have a lot of people on the East
sure.
Hill to be able to have a place for the community to come to. I mean, I think it is the community. I think if we can look at that, that'll be great.
Yeah, I think it's more of a question of can you secure, because there's a lot of expensive equipment, and so can you secure public access with
Right.
back end, but something certainly we could continue to look at. And then I did just put the schedule up here if you're curious. Either way, whether we do the full move or the half, we'll be submitting permits by June 15th, bidding officially May, June-ish, 24. Construction starts summer next year. It is probably a 2-year window. Staff could be moving in 2026. And then just a side note for you all, Keyhawk took a little bit more of our time. So once we're done with Keyhawk, we'll be switching to just City Hall and City Campus stuff.
So you mentioned about being energy efficient in the new building, right? That's the same when we talk about green climate, that's all the same thing, or we're talking two different things?
Yeah, I mean, you can shoot for certain types of like certification, you know, gold or silver or whatever. It's really a cost issue and how much. And so while we didn't go full that way, we're doing everything we can to do energy efficiency because there is new state guidelines coming out in 28 for a building this size. And it's a lot of that focus is bringing your consumption down.
Okay.
So the things that the team's put in place is actually going to drop our consumption out there, which is great. And so what we're looking for today is really just all right, we think we can live with the higher amount. Real council action move would come later once we have the firm numbers, and then you would actually do the formal vote. But we want to feel comfortable if we plan, you know, are you comfortable with the concepts we presented? Or if not, is there something else? And then happy to answer.
We'll start to the left. Yes, no, hey.
Yes, Council President, I think if we're going to do something like this, that's going to last for at least 50 years, we need to do it right and just do it right the first time.
Councilor McCord?
Agree with Councilmember Michelle.
Councilor Malummer?
I'm also on board. I think we need to also utilize the investments we've already made out there. It just doesn't make sense to keep waiting financially.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Troutner?
Yeah, I'm okay with this, but I agree not to use the fund balance would be preferred. Thank you.
Councilor Fincher?
I'm okay with it also. We keep waiting, the cost is going to keep escalating. We have people, we need a place to put them. So
I'm okay. Just think about that community room. Move forward, okay? All right.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, we have item F next, and this is Tammy White, and it's going to be around now the council bylaws. Tammy, please.
Good afternoon, Council. Tammy White, City Attorney. I'm a very low-tech gal, so you don't have to worry about any tech glitching. I actually brought paper copies. So in looking through the resolution, so we have a prior resolution, I think it was 2021 that was adopted, and then I just presented you with a draft one that's in your packet. I like to look at things at a snapshot, and so I created sort of a chart that compares kind of some of the primary issues in the resolution, how the provision is under your existing resolution that's in effect, and then if you were to adopt this proposed resolution, kind of what the after effect would be. I'm going to pass that out to you. And then there was also some feedback we received on one provision, and then when I went back and I looked at it, it makes so much sense that I don't know why I didn't include it in the initial draft. So there is a change that I would propose move forward from what you have in your packet, and so it's highlighted here. Okay, so now that I just handed you a bunch of paper in addition to the other paper that you have in your packet, I'll kind of start running through it. Much of the resolution stays the same. So the first three articles, one deals with the purpose, the second deals with the position of the council president, and then the council meeting part is where we get into some changes. The first few ones are unaffected. There's some stylistic changes that are proposed in strike through and underline. The actual substance of those provisions hasn't changed. So then when we get down into the council meetings, one section that is changed is regarding your meeting cancellations. How can a regular city council meeting be canceled? You might remember last summer there was an inquiry about canceling the meeting that happened right after the 4th of July. Your rules didn't provide for how could we cancel a meeting. So we had to do a formal motion and have you take action on that just to cancel that one meeting. So consistent with kind of how we deal with existing committee meetings, the resolution includes a provision that would authorize the council president to be able to cancel that meeting in accordance with all of the notice that's required under the OPMA. The next section, it's sections 3.10 and 3.18 in the proposed one. It deals with how your agenda gets set. And so the existing resolution, when I read it, was a little confusing to me as to who could add items to the agenda or when could it proceed directly to council and not have to first go through a committee meeting. So the provisions that I've amended really tries to bring some harmony to those two provisions and make them consistent. So there is nothing new or different that's added, it's just clarified. And so that provides that in order for anything to get to your full city council meeting, it must first go through your council committee meeting. Or if it's approved by the council president, it could go directly to council. If it's ordered by a majority vote of the city council, it can get onto the council agenda. If it's requested through the mayor or if it's submitted by the city attorney. Those are the only ways that a matter could get directly to you without first going through a committee. Now, the section that is really kind of where the meat and potatoes are of that resolution is dealing with your council committee. And so those provisions would be changed to this proposed resolution. So right now, under your current resolution, you have 4 separate committees that are counseled or served by just 3 council members. The proposed resolution would now bring you back to the committee of the whole structure, which you had a couple years ago. And so instead of now having 4 separate committees, which are then separately organized by 4 different topics, you would have one committee meeting where every council member sits, and there would be 5 subject matters that would sit on your agenda where all of the issues would be discussed with all of you present. So right now what happens is when a matter goes to a committee, there's only 3 council members that serve on that committee. They hear the information on that particular item, and then that item moves forward to your full council meeting where it is then adopted on consent. So the other members that are present at the council meeting would not have heard all of the information at the committee meeting. So there's some context that could be missing from that. So under this proposal, all of you would hear everything on all of the matters that are presented to you for action. So everybody at the time that you're asked to take final action on an issue would have the benefit of all of that information from staff, and it would create more efficiencies for staff in presenting it to you one time to all of you instead of presenting it to just 3 and then maybe doing some follow-ups with individual council members who reach out. The items presented, again, would still be organized by subject matter. So there would be on each agenda your operations, and then you would have public safety, and you'd have parks and human services. And so each topic would be organized, and you'd have all of the items there just like you would now under your existing committee structure. One of the efficiencies that would be created is right now with these current 4 separate committees, there are at least 6 different meetings that happen every month. And so that's staff going to each of those committees to present to you and then also going to the council committee. So right now we have Public Works Committee, which meets both on the 1st and 3rd Monday of each month. The Economic and Community Development Committee meets on the 2nd Monday of each month. Operations and Public Safety, where we're at today, meets on both the 1st and the 3rd Tuesday of every month. And then Parks and Human Services meets on the 1st Thursday of every month. Now under this proposed structure, all of your meetings would be just on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays. So instead of having 6 separate meetings a month, there would now be just 2. And so that would then be on the 1st and the 3rd Tuesday, and they would be organized by topics. And so on the 1st Tuesday, trying to keep it consistent with how Parks Committee meets now, which is that 1st Thursday of every month, it would be Operations, Public Safety, and Parks and Human Services would meet on that 1st Tuesday. And then on the 3rd Tuesday, it would be Operations, Economic and Community Development, and Public Works. But what we've done is written into that resolution a provision that if there is an issue that's time sensitive and you need to take action more swiftly than kind of what those topics would allow, it can be heard during the operations portion of the agenda on either one of those meetings. So the whole purpose of this wouldn't be kind of defeated in allowing you to take efficient action. We would still be able to move something under the operations section if we need to move more swiftly. So for committee appointments, right now, the council president is the one who determines, who is the chair and also then the committee members of each committee. That would still remain under this new proposal to you. But what would happen right now, since you have these 4 separate committees, if you were to move forward under this approach, whoever is currently a chair now of that topic, so Councilmember Michaud, you who serve as the chair for Parks and Human Services, would continue to serve as the subject matter chair for Parks and Human Services matter, and so on and so on. Then when a new council president is elected, there would be new elections to those subject matter chair positions every 2 years. Or if there's a vacation in a position, then the council president would make a new electment at that time for a new subject matter chair. So the chair duties right now on each of your individual committees, the chair handles all matters related to that issue. So there'll be procedural issues, calling the meeting to order, adjourning the meeting, and kind of moving and transitioning between each issue that's on the agenda. Under this new proposal, so you would still have one committee of the whole. So the council president would serve as the chair of that overarching committee, but that's going to be to call that committee to order, to go through and take a motion to confirm the agenda as you do now, and just to handle any sort of procedural disputes that could arise, and then to adjourn the meeting. Then the council president would only chair those operation matters. But as you get into a different subject matter on your agenda, the role of chair would then change to follow whoever is the subject matter chair for that issue. So it's just a transition that would happen smoothly through each different subject matter. I assume the first few times that it happens, it may not be as smooth, and that's where we might need some more assistance from the council president. But the intent is that it would be very seamless and just kind of move through the subjects of the agenda very swiftly. So right now, the committee agendas are set by the chair of the committee, or two or more of you can decide you want to have an issue addressed on a committee, or the council president. Now, this is where that change that I just handed out to you. So right now, in the proposed resolution that was in the packet, for a committee of the whole, the agenda would be set by the council president in consultation with the chief administrative officer, or with two or more council members, or what I've added is by the subject matter chair. It just makes sense that if you are the chair of the subject matter, you should have the authority to be able to add an issue to that agenda to have it discussed by the committee of the whole. And so that highlighted change is what I'm proposing to add to the version that was in the version originally published. And then your council workshop, the only change with respect to that is the starting time. So right now, your council workshop starts at 5, and that's under your existing resolution. Under this structure, since we're adding additional topics, we would shift the time. So the meeting would still start at 4, but would possibly go until 5:15 to give additional room, and then workshop would start at 5:15 instead of the existing 5 o'clock. And then workshop would end by 6:30 to give you a little bit of a break before your 7 o'clock council meeting. If you're to move forward with this resolution, resolutions are typically enforced or in effect immediately upon passage. So this resolution still provides for that, but provides that any changes to it won't be implemented until June 1st. That's just a lot of information that I gave you. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
First of all, you did a phenomenal job of making us feel like lawyers. We understand. So no, you really broke it down, I think, and make a lot of sense. And we'll go from here. Councilmember Lambert, see your light lit up, please.
Yeah. So yeah, Tammy, thank you for this thorough. I love this table. It's super helpful. I do very much like the change to the agenda setting rules. Question though, on packet page 41, printed page 14, the last two sentences of A. The council president shall have the right to remove subject matter experts and reappoint council members to fill those roles. The council president may appoint new council members who is appointed or elected to fill a. Could you just clarify what's that?
Sure, and that's a current provision that you have under your existing ordinance. So if there was needed to be a change or shift folks around, the council president would have the ability to move sort of those chairs. So
at any time.
At any time, and the council president can do that now under your existing resolution. So this is not making any change to that current process. So for now, but right now the resolution also provides, so that happens every 2 years. But if some event were to happen, the council president does need to have some ability to make those changes if it's necessary.
Okay, thank you. And then second question, if I may.
Please.
Jamal. With this, with the idea of these topics being brought before all of us, I guess I'd like to clarify, what is the intent then of the workshop? Is the workshop not also for us when we need to hear everything? So I'm curious what the deciding factor would be here between.
So my understanding of workshops, and I think that a lot of them are sort of at your discretion of what you want them to be, are kind of more informational sharing sessions, where like Julie Parascondola's presentation to you today could have been at a workshop, where it's more kind of giving you just general information.
I think that's my question, because we do that at the committee.
I think that happens. Yeah. I think there was some discussion in the past of maybe not doing that as often and having it really for action items, but I think that's sort of at your pleasure as to how you want to use those meetings. But typically my understanding is that workshops are to be used for that kind of information sharing purpose. And
also more in-depth conversation too. We want to go deeper on something, and we will spend the time at the workshop to allocate time strictly for that. And we have a list of things that's workshop discussion. I came up with something you guys threw at is on the agenda already to be discussed in workshop, but those really will be do a deep dive into the conversation, ask more questions and so on. Are you good?
For now.
Right. Councilmember Fincher.
And my concern to this is that deep dive part. That, to me, the feeling is that we go into a deeper dive when we have the committee format than when we have the committee of the whole. And I know for myself, part of that is the issue of feeling that knowing not everyone sitting here may have to worry about a specific public works issue, feeling that I'm taking up more time for the entire group. than would necessarily be taken up in a committee meeting.
So you're saying your meeting will be longer? I'm not sure I'm tracking you.
I'm thinking that we would not go in depth, therefore the meeting would be shorter, but some of the detail that might have gone out to be part of the committee meeting, people who, for instance, I'll take my committee, Public Works, people who are interested in Public Works know when that meeting's going to be, they can tune in, and sometimes we do go more in depth than if I was sitting right here, like today. I'm going to try to make it more concise. Not as much detail may be given out. So I think it's a better format for our public to learn what is happening.
Okay. Councilmember Troutner?
Thank you, Council President. And I know I don't have a question, so I know that this is actually question time.
Yep.
So I just want to make a comment that sometimes I feel like, and I can see where you're going, Councilmember Fincher, but sometimes I feel like we're putting things on an agenda because we need to fill that time and that space when we're coming here. Because very often we'll come here for a meeting that lasts all of 10 or 15 minutes, yet we've asked staff to prepare something, and, we've all come down here to take action on a few things that would fit perfectly into this format. And then I feel like sometimes we're taking items and just putting them in to let the public know what's happening, but they're kind of like filler items that would be perfect for that workshop, where, again, the benefit of us changing to this format allows all of us to be informed on something that is happening throughout the city, not just those three people. I just think that we owe it to our public to all of us be in the know when it comes to things that are taking place, projects that are happening. And I think that is a good place to be. So thank you.
President, could I offer
Please.
one additional thing,
Please.
just to Councilmember Fincher's point? So trying to make sure that we have enough time to address all of the issues. We've tried to take that into account when we assign sort of the subject matters. So Public Works, for one of them, we'll always have operations. Sometimes there's a lot of matters, sometimes there's not so much. Economic and community development, sometimes they don't have a lot of matters on there. Some meetings have been canceled. And so we've kind of paired Public Works with economic and community development, just trying to allow for that additional time. Same with parks. I know sometimes parks meetings, they get canceled a lot. And so we've kind of balanced that by having parks with the public safety matters and operations. So we tried to align the subject matters to try to allow for enough time to address the business that you really need to get done and not feel rushed.
Thank you. Councilman Lum, would you like to deal it up?
Yeah, actually, no. Just following on what Councilmember Fincher was saying, I too have serious concerns about the 1 hour limit. I understand there are times right now where meetings are canceled or meetings are short, but it's not always the case. When we did Cal before, some of those meetings would go 2 to 3 hours. So even splitting it up, you're talking at least an hour and a half. And that was at the time, and part of the reason we reversed is we felt that we couldn't go as deep as we wanted for the public. So I just am really hard pressed to see how we're going to get good quality discussions without feeling rushed, trying to get everything within an hour. And then we're also looking at some really big topics coming up. Things are slow right now, but we're looking at our comprehensive plan, and there's going to be some real meaty stuff coming before us. And so, yeah, I share Councilmember Fincher's concern about our ability to go in depth and really understand and debate and evaluate these topics in the abbreviated time.
My only thought with that, first of all, as the agenda setting, right? So if there's going to be a big media item that's going to come for Public Works Departments, we can adjust the agenda to make sure we have enough time to do that, right? So we don't have to always, like last month, we had a short agenda on some of the stuff with ops and public safety, and there's some that's big. So when I have my meeting with Pat and team, right, we kind of look at what's coming on, what's on the agenda, and we make sure that we can get some of the immediate items in. If we got a lot of stuff plus a media item, we'll adjust the agenda to make sure that we get those in. That will still happen today, and that will still happen tomorrow. I know, Pat, you up there, you want to make a comment?
No, that's okay. I do want to note a couple things. Budget is always a big deal. We always have workshops set aside. Sometimes we have special workshops for that if we need them. We also reserve a lot of time. We've been able to cancel a lot of those meetings because we've gone through the budget quickly. You raised a comp plan. We're going to do a lot of that through workshop. We're going to be scheduling joint meetings with our Land Use and Planning Board and the council, which are going to be special meetings. So a lot of that's going to be informational, non-decision point issues that we're going to discuss in a workshop, and we've already contemplated some special meetings for that. And then there's other times when we can add meetings if we need to as a special meeting status. So that's just something to keep in mind as you guys think about this. So.
Okay. Lights, Councilman Show. Okay.
Thank you, Council President. I was actually going to ask if Pat could come up here and talk about the impacts on staff and why this, like some of the reasoning behind this.
Yeah, so, okay, so you know that the city of Kent, we're running mean and lean. And I can just give you a little snapshot. This week, during one of our hiring processes, we learned that while Kent has 4 long-range planners, a smaller city, Kirkland, apparently has 22. Our department directors are all working directors. They have their own projects. They aren't just out there directing traffic. They're out there doing work. And what we run into in a city our size with the amount of work that we have to do is we have a tendency to get siloed because we're all buckled down, just, eyes on our work and getting it done. One of the transitions that we're doing, if the council approves the committee of the whole, we're going to require ELT to attend all the council committees of the whole so that all of ELT can get a better understanding of what the other departments are doing. And this is especially critical for the internal service departments so that we really understand, law knows what IT is doing, IT knows what HR is doing, et cetera, et cetera. So those are some important factors. The other thing is it takes a lot of work from Kim's crew to put the meetings together, to get notice out, scheduling the whole bit. So there's some efficiencies there too. So that's not the only reason, but it is something, that's one of the reasons. I'll tell you straight up, staff is excited about the potential for this. This is your decision. We will be fine with whatever decision you make here, but that's the reasoning behind it from our perspective. So.
I will add too, I personally spent time talking to all of those subject matter staff directors back there, right? And I think you said it well, but they are swamped. They are busy. And the presentation, for example, that Julie gave, this stuff don't come to us at the 30,000-foot level. She go deep down at the 5,000-foot level to make sure we understand. So that take a lot of work, a lot of effort. I'm sure if they have their choice, they like to have plenty more people on their staff, but they don't. So they are truly working directors, and this is something that I spent time with each one of those and trying to figure out, these are the subject matter expert, and they are proposing and saying, Bill, this would be a good thing for us to be able to do this here. So, it's nothing that happened overnight. A lot of thought went in this here, and I know each one of them is looking forward to us making this motion go through. If it don't, they still continue doing what they're doing. Okay. Any more discussion for Tammy? If not, I'm going to ask Brenda Fincher, please.
Okay, it wasn't necessary for Tammy, just to the point about being knowledgeable about what goes on in the committees, is that we do all of those meetings that are going to be moved in are broadcast, that we can see those meetings and participate in that way. So we do see what's going on and have the ability to participate and keep up.
Okay. I see no other lights. I'm going to ask for a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt resolution number 2061, which enacts new bylaws, rules, and procedures of the Kent City Council and repeals resolution number 2025.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Councilman Malone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to say once again, I support this here. I think it's a good thing to do. I think it's, we don't get down as council member in the day-to-day work, right? So I like listen to our directors or our subject matter expert that come to us and talk about ways we can be more efficient, talk about ways to do real value-added things, right? And I think we can still get the job done into this format. The city of Kent is not the only one that runs a COW committee as a whole. I mean, King County, all our neighboring cities for the most part, and it seemed to be working for the most part. So I strongly support it. Hope my council members support this here and looking at ways to make our directors' life a little easier and be able to give them time to do meaningful work that's value added. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm gonna ask Kim. Can we just do a roll call for the vote, please?
Thank you, Council President. Okay, Councilmember Fincher.
Nay.
Councilmember Kaur.
Yay.
Was that yay? Yes. Okay. Councilmember Larmer.
Nay.
Councilmember Michaud.
Yay.
Councilmember Troutner.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyce.
Yay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and I will speak. I know Councilmember Thomas is not here, but this is something that he strongly supports. So I just want to put that out for the record as well too. Okay, thank you, Tammy, for your time, and all your directors. I hope you can utilize this time and make it meaningful. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next item here on the agenda.
This should be pretty short and sweet.
I haven't called you up yet.
Oh, dang it.
Kurt, what am I going to do with her? Please.
Many rules. Thanks. Okay, so I'm just going to talk to you briefly about a funding opportunity that we have that came to us from King County Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services levy. The King County Adult Services Division staff reached out to our home repair staff recently, looking for some programs to provide some additional funding to. There are a couple very odd parameters in place. They really wanted to look at programs that were underfunded or had a scope that was not allowed under the existing parameters of home repair programs. They are offering us $250,000, and unfortunately those funds have to be spent by the end of this year. So that's why we're here before you today without much notice. We met internally and with their staff over a couple weeks to try to figure out what would be the best use for those funds. And we kind of kept coming back to the disparate impact that heat has on our low-income seniors, unfortunately, especially within the city of Kent. Seniors are most at risk to heat-related illness and deaths. And I'm going to go through this really quickly just because I know you guys have workshop as well. But looking at our current home repair program, we're not allowed to purchase air conditioners or fans. Unfortunately, HUD still thinks that those are luxury items. So it fit within the parameters of something that was outside of the scope of that program. We also looked into heat pumps and central air, but because of the cost associated with that, it would really only be able to help a limited number of individuals. And then with the time crunch and reliance on outside contractors, you know, at a very busy time of the year, we felt like our most efficient course of action would be to look at portable AC units. It's pretty simple to do a bulk purchase, we hope. And our goal is to help probably close to 300, 350 people, whereas with AC heat pumps, maybe 20, 25 people. Eligibility criteria, this is something that's pretty much set by King County, not necessarily us. And all of this is just things that we're still refining, but just in case you had questions, I wanted to mention. So we will be limiting it to City of Kent residents. They are requesting that we focus on homeowner occupied units, similar to how our home repair program works. Household income under 80% AMI, we will probably target lower than that, and then at least one resident of the home must be 55 years or older. Again, we will likely target our older than that individuals. Marketing, we have several different ideas in place for how we'll get the word out. Targeting advertisement to our 55 plus communities. We'll use the city website, social media, targeted advertising, mailings, and we'll look to council and anybody else to make sure that we're reaching as many people that we can. We don't really know exactly what the response will be. We anticipate more people will want them than what we have available, of course, but we do have some prioritization that we're establishing so that we'll be able to ensure that the units get out to those who need them the most. This is the part where I'll get in trouble if I try to go too far into the details, but my home repair staff and Brittany Levins, who's done most of the legwork on this project, so thank you, Brittany. We're going to be looking for units that are as energy efficient as possible. We're really targeting kind of that mid-range, so 500 square feet. There are units that are bigger and can cool larger areas, but when we think about the types of homes that these will be probably placed in, we want to make sure that we're not popping circuit breakers and things like that. And we also want to be mindful of the impact that it could have on people's energy bills. So we'll make sure that we'll share all that information for anyone that is able to receive a unit, but those are things that we're taking into consideration. We may have delivery, but we're also allowing for pickup. We know that not all seniors will be able to drive down and pick it up, so we're going to be working with our home repair staff to figure out how we can get those units delivered. We're talking with legal also about their thoughts on liability and issues that we might have if we do install them. But we'll be making very clear that it's really a one-time thing. If you're familiar with the LIHEAP program, they do this as well through the multi-service center, but it's at capacity. They're not, taking any orders right now for summer. It's just really overutilized. So we know that there are still people out there in Kent that will be able to use this. Again, we're going to get underway as soon as we possibly can because we have to look at supply chain issues and things like that. We know that this recent little heat wave that we just had may have already even put a dent into our ability to do bulk purchases. So we wanted to bring you the contract today, but we just got it from King County literally this morning, I think. So we weren't able to bring you the full contract. We put in the packet as much information as we had at the time. It's very similar to a contract that's already in place with the senior center. So boilerplate and everything should be pretty standard, and you've all seen that before. So hopefully this can be a pretty easy yes for you all. But if you have questions, let me know. I'll try to answer.
Great presentation. Thank you. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you, Council President. Quick question, I guess. So I'm very excited about this program. It's going to help our seniors, and I hope we reach out to as diverse populations as much possible.
Yes.
Talking to our Culture Communities Board, and I don't know what their new name is now.
Yeah.
And any maybe Kent International Festival, having a table there. But my question is about if other organizations are also doing the same work in Kent. What if there's like duplication of similar, we are making sure that we're reaching out to as many, I'd say, individuals who don't have access to ACs. Maybe they've already gotten one from, another organization. How do we keep track of that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I haven't really thought about that in terms of if they've already received them through LIHEAP, but we probably could. We have pretty close working relationships with Multi-Service Center. I imagine once we refine our list down, we could probably double check with them and make sure, keeping in mind privacy concerns. I'm not really sure if we can share data, but yeah, I know that with their program, they only allow 1 unit per household. And we were planning to do the same thing. But yeah, we can work with Multi-Service Center and see if there's any duplication concerns.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Councilmember Lammer.
Thank you. You mentioned you would be discussing impacts on the electricity bill. I can tell you from the Aging and Disabilities Council, we often hear that PSC has programs for low income, rebates for seniors and stuff, but often those aren't used. So just to call out that as you talk to them about them, look for those opportunities where there could be rebate in senior programs that they're just not aware or utilizing, because that comes up frequently that those programs exist and people aren't taking part. So
that's good. Yeah, we did check PSC's site to see if they have any current rebates, and I think Brittany actually contacted them directly to see if they have anything. They don't seem to have anything for air conditioning units right now. I think they do for heat pumps. Okay. But we'll keep checking and make sure that they're aware.
Senior discounts just in general on on electrical rates aren't.
Right. I know that when I even went on PSC's website to look at the rebates, I was like, oh my gosh, how many of these have I purchased and not actually filed that? So, yeah. Okay. Good information.
Councilmember Fincher.
I'm just thinking of another way to get the word out. Thinking of people who are not able to go, the seniors who are not able to physically go to the senior center.
Right.
That some of those are going to probably be using the Meals on Wheels services.
I
And
actually
some
have
of
that,
those.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep, we're going to target Meals on Wheels, the senior center, any other programs that we're aware of in Kent that do target seniors. So definitely doing some of that targeted advertising, but trying as hard as we can to focus on people who don't already access some of these services. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Michelle, you still have your, yeah, please.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Merina and team, for getting this to us quickly. I hope that we're not too late and we can buy this many air conditioners and get those out quickly because the heat is already here.
Yes.
So, thank you.
We're ready. We have secured storage prepared. We're ready to do it. We just need to get the contract signed and get moving.
I think that's it. Our question. Thanks, Marina. Appreciate that. Can I have a motion, please?
Council President, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a grant agreement with King County in the amount of $250,000 to fund the distribution of portable air conditioning units to eligible seniors, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Motion is second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Marina, thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to item H, Jail Management System. Brian.
Thank you, Council President. Evening, members of the City Council. Brian Rambonga, PMO Manager with your Information Technology Department. I'm here this evening to present for authorization and agreement with Black Creek Integrated Systems Corporation at a total cost not to exceed $632,905 for deployment of a new jail management system. To provide some background, Black Creek is one of the two systems that will be replacing Tiburon, the police department's current records management system, Axon being the other. Originally, Tiburon was scoped to be replaced by Axon with a total budget of $2.1 million. And throughout that project process, we learned Axon didn't satisfy all of the requirements for the jail management functionality of Tiburon. Through additional assessment and vendor solution evaluation, it was determined that Black Creek was able to meet those requirements. Therefore, the original Tiburon replacement budget was split into two capital projects. One budget covering the Axon implementation for $1.6 million, which has a target date of Q2 2024. The other covering Black Creek's implementation for $1.1 million, which has a target date deployment in Q3 of 2024. It is an overall goal to keep these two systems aligned in our implementation so that we don't have staff working in two systems at the same time. The cost that we're presenting for proposal of this contract is scoped and projected to cover hardware, software, implementation services, including integrations, training, configuration from Black Creek, things of that nature. With that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Malamer?
Thank you. Just a point of clarity. So we had a budget with Tiburon, but they couldn't fulfill the requirements?
With Axon to replace
Axon.
Tiburon, originally
Okay,
for
so Axon.
2.1.
Okay, so this is this already been budgeted then? Is that? Okay.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you. I just wanted clarity on that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the systems purchase agreement with Black Creek Integrated Systems Corporation in an amount up to $632,905, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the IT Director and City Attorney, and to authorize the IT Director to sign all future annual renewals that are within established budgets.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. The last thing on our agenda for today is from ARPA subrecipient agreement with the UW, University of Washington. Bill Ellis.
Hi, thanks Council President, thanks committee. I'll try to keep this a little short in time for a workshop, but last but not least, I have a couple of guests today. I wanted to introduce two presenters, one from Green River College, the Dean of Academic Programs and the Kent Station branch, Tsai-En Cheng, who's presented to you before in the past, and she'll be co-presented with someone teleconferencing in for remote today. Correct. There she is, Kristi Morgansen, Director of Aeronautics and Astronautics from University of Washington. In the past, Council, I've brought forward contracts with the Washington Space Grant Consortium, which is a NASA collaboration at University of Washington for education. We've done that with our lodging tax program in the past with Robert Wingley. After he's passed away, Washington Space Grant Consortium is now under the purview of the Director of Aeronautics and Astronautics, Kristi Morgansen, and we've been talking about a joint collaboration of Kent School District, Green River College, and University of Washington on teacher certification programs to encourage more of our teachers and our student bodies to have exposure to space project learning. And I think this is an initial investment using some of our federal funds to build even more longer-lasting, durable partnerships with our school district and our college and our university together on the industry area thematic that is of greatest growth, highest wage, and leading employers in our city. So with that, I'm going to turn over the dais here to Tsai-En Cheng to talk a little bit more about the project.
Good evening, council members. Kristi, would you like to start? We will first present you about what this project and the scope of it, and then I will talk about what's the local impact with the Green River and with the collaboration. How about that? Kristi?
Great, thank you. And excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold, but thank you so much for your time and for this opportunity to speak with you. So the goal of the project that we are looking at, this is something that a type of this has been done in other places, teacher training programs, but the one that we're going to focus on, hopefully, is developing project-based curriculum that meets next generation science standards, and it's tailored to students from underserved demographics, which is what the Space Grant Consortia in each of the states do. In this particular case, what we are looking to focus on thematically with this project is on remote sensing for sustainable, both in local communities, but then also tying that into space communities. So really focusing on sustainable society kinds of things. And that's an expertise of things that we do in our area. What this is going to address is going to be some longstanding impact of resource constraints, and that's on the education front. So we've, of course, seen this in a variety of places before the pandemic, and then the pandemic, of course, made it worse. We know that there are gaps in serving different demographics in terms of STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. A bunch of that comes down to them not seeing themselves in those kinds of jobs and in those kinds of settings. So we want to make sure that we're providing role models for them. We want to do a collaboration focus in how they're getting that project-based learning rather than kind of this traditional individual reward competition structure, because we believe that that will be more effective. There isn't really an educational model really yet that does that. And I think this is a great opportunity to do it. And then again, a direct focus on community problem solving, tying that then into the space domain. So how do we connect those community problem solving challenges to remote sensing tools and then to off-world habitats and operations? Next slide, please. So I'm gonna do my best to very much respect your time here, and I'm going to skim through some of this, but you have these materials. This part right here is showing all of the current National Academy of Engineering grand engineering challenges that have been identified, as well as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. If we go to the next slide. So pulling out the ones that really, really tie to sustainable societies and communities, sustainable habitats. There's some overlap in both of these. And then if you go to the next slide, please. And then how this all connects together. So there are all these pieces from these grand challenges, things that have been identified globally that connect together into what are referred to sort of in the space domain as smart habitats. The thing is, if you can build these habitats off the planet, they have great impact on everything we need on the planet. So things like clean water, nitrogen cycle, energy, all of these things. And all of them also tie into remote sensing and environmental monitoring. So we want to really focus on that in this project. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the motivation here also ties into, probably you've seen some things around the number of jobs that are open right now, particularly on the science and technology side of things. These data are from 2020, just because that's how long it takes for the data to be processed out of the national databases. So back in 2020, there were 3.3 million high school graduates. Of them, 430,000 got bachelor's degrees in STEM, but of those, only about 130 were engineering. And I'm entirely behind. Not everybody needs an engineering degree. Not everybody needs a 4-year degree. But when you start looking at what that segment is of the high school graduates, it's nowhere near covering all of these jobs. We actually need, 430 is not even 15%. 430,000 is not even 15% of the high school graduates. In order to close all of these job gaps anytime in the next decade, honestly, we probably need more like 30 to 40% of the students going into STEM. And so there's a lot of need to do that kind of education. So next slide. And why this matters, particularly for communities like Kent, is that the only way we're going to get all of those students is that we have to do better with engaging the underserved communities. So students that are coming from what are designated underrepresented minorities. So this is an NSF, National Science Foundation designation. So our African American and Black students, Hispanic, Latinx, all of those demographics, we have to engage them. We have to figure out how to get them into these jobs. And that requires doing education differently. And that's what we're wanting to do. So next slide. And as bad as it is with underrepresented minorities, the gap is even bigger percentage-wise with gender. So we also need to get more girls and then women into these fields and keep them there. So huge gaps, but also lots of opportunity. So because the thing is that if you can get these people into these fields, they innovate at higher rates than the sort of traditional majority people. And so that's something we really want to capture. So I'm not going to go through all of these references here. You have them in the materials. Okay, so Washington Space Grant Consortium, what we are, there's one in each state, as well as one in Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. We are tasked and paid by federal funds to really close that gap and to address students at a level of demographic that's in our state. So these are the current partners within the Washington consortium. My plan over the next few years is to grow this. I've been the director for a couple of years now, which I think I spent most of that time figuring out how to do it because it's a very different kind of program. So now I feel like I'm ready to broaden this out a bit. Next slide, which is an eye chart, and I apologize for this. There's one little bit of information which I should have pulled off of this, and I'm sorry, I did this on the airplane on my way here to DC today. If you can read this, like sort of in the upper left, there's this number that says 92.2% of the Washington Space Grant Consortium students continue in STEM disciplines. So we know that by doing outreach to these students and really focusing on the ones who have not been getting the resources and have not been part of that majority, by doing focused outreach to them and really engaging them in meaningful ways, and we do this with scholarships and project programs and various ways, that they stay in STEM. And so we really, really want to focus on that. So this is a bunch of other stuff here. Yeah, and then Diane.
Information, I hope that give you a more like a statewide, nationwide data and information. And why is it important for Green River to be in here? Green River, we committed to serve the community. And if we really look at the impact, if we want to impact students, we can impact students directly. But K-12 education is the starting point. It's from the students. So if we want to close the equity gap and the opportunity gap for students, is to impact the teacher. The students can be successful without the teacher being successful if the parents have the resources. But if the teachers are successful, knowing how to do test-based learning, how to do collaborative project, then the student has a higher chance of getting that education and close the equity gap. And so in order to increase the student success, I personally believe that we need to increase the teacher and give them the resources and support that we can. Currently, we don't have that curriculum. Most of the teacher training programs are based on Common Core. That's designated by the state, and teachers are very busy. So with the collaboration with Kristi, we will be able to use the CT's of Kent support to forecasting 5 years out of a curriculum development. The teachers can start planting space education concept to the students rather than wait until the industry yelling like, we really need the people, we really need the people, then we're trying to figure out how we're going to build a program. Green River, it takes us 2 years usually to build a program or a degree. So if we can have the teachers build the concept while the college trying to figure out the gap to connect it, it will allow us to build a future training program. Like Kristi mentioned, it might not be everyone wants to go to a 4-year university. It might not be everyone wants to just have a bachelor degree or just a master's degree or Ph.D. Someone might want to do welding in space, building rocket. Nothing wrong with it. They just need the space concept, but they might be in our welding program, but they might not see the opportunity if they don't have a space concept. So the next slide. Currently, some of the projects that can echo to that is that there are several projects that I'm working on, but I will focus on a couple of them. So how do we really transition? I've been working with different school districts, how to look at high school students smoothly transition into community college and then further to universities if they want to. A lot of students are getting dual credit without knowing that already they are halfway or more than halfway into community college degree. They don't know that because they probably take the class that they wanted without knowing that benefit them. So I work with Auburn School District, for example, to look at how can we make sure students and recognizing their achievement when they are in high school. Career pathways map collaboration as I work with school district looking at their curriculum map. So usually is every 2-3 years, the school district will look at their curriculum, looking at how this curriculum is mapping to a career. And so then I work with school districts proactively to look at, okay, what are the things that's needed? Do we adjust the map so then they can start adjusting their curriculum ready to go into a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree? For that teacher with all those efforts, if we add in Green River, we offer teacher training clock hours. And so we have been supporting the STEM clock hours. So now with this project, we will be able to target it and collaborate with UW to be able to get data. If we can help the teacher getting the space education concept curriculum, going back to the classroom, teaching it in the class based on their common core and adding in some elements, or doing after-school clubs and see the results and the impact coming back the following summer. So those are just a couple of the things that I hope that with this project and the support, we'll be able to connect all the dots, that the students will have multiple entry points to have a career exploration related to space. Kristi, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you could go to that slide. Yeah, so this one right here, I just wanted to give a little snapshot here. This is actually a piece of the next generation science standard that the teachers have been working to build for actually quite a few years. It's been hard because they have to do that kind of on the side, and they may not have a good sense of what projects might be great to work on. So we want to provide that for them and give them this space to help build this curriculum to really make the students competitive and understand what it takes to solve scientific types of problems. Next slide, please. Okay, so a bit more of the structure here. Mm-hmm. So we've got a 5E model that we want to do in combination with that. And this is from a curriculum designer that we work with in Space Grant. So the students would start with, and the teachers would build a curriculum around this, case studies. So they're going to be looking at what are real world problems that are local. So within the Kent area, within their communities, within their families that could be improved with sensing. We'll walk through what kinds of remote sensing there are and how would you leverage that. There's a point where they check for understanding, where they actually do the explaining back to other people. It's a great way to make sure you've learned something. And then they're going to come up with a set of problems that they're going to want to focus on. They'll choose one, research it, and then create a plan. And it could be that they'll leverage something like drones or delivery of the sensing via a high altitude balloon. And then they'll have a frequent feedback in there. So they'll be doing peer-to-peer communication. This is a very key skill that they all need to learn. I can tell you the college students are still working on it. And then at the end of it, it'll culminate with a science fair type of opportunity where they'll share out. And I do, again, want to emphasize this is not meant to be an individual competition, because that does not resonate with a lot of the lived experiences and community styles of students from sort of this non-general, non-majority kind of cultural framing. So we want to make sure and respect that, because you have to meet them where they are in order for it to really stick and for it to be successful. What we're planning ideally for this summer is to start with 5 teachers. We have been in communication with the Kent School District middle school and high school teachers through their STEM coordinator, work with a curriculum designer. This would be for 6 weeks this summer with the 5 of them, because the summer's a little bit compressed this year. They would be getting hardware experience at the UW in the engineering labs, and then they will get clock hours through Green River Community College. This program will be tested with some high school students that are being engaged by the Pacific Science Center. So that's one of our partnerships through Space Grant. And then the deployment and outcome tracking would start during this next academic year. And then we'll follow on with a repeat of this next summer, the following summer of 24, ideally with 8 teachers. And then next slide. Oh, I don't know what happened to that one. I'm sorry. I was looking at this earlier. Something happened on the airplane. Anyway, future building off of this, we are planning to apply for additional funding. So the National Science Foundation has a program around this. It doesn't focus on space, but we do want to see what we can do to leverage that. So the deadline's in October. The NASA Office of STEM Engagement has funding for this kind of activities. We'll apply for that as well. It actually is specifically targeted for the space grants to apply for. And then we can also scale this out through University of Washington. Everybody who's getting NSF grants, you have to have this broader impacts area. And so if we show them some key things where they can just plug right into it, and we can scale it that way as well and leverage some capabilities and resources that way. And I believe that is all of the slides that we have. So thank you so much for your time. We're happy to take any questions.
So our goal is just that allow us to commit it to Kent, and then seeing that impact from teachers, so that all students have the equal opportunities.
Well, it's not a great program, great presentation. Councilmember McCoy, have a question?
Thank you, Council President. I'm very excited about this program, so thank you for bringing this opportunity. My question is, how are these teachers going to go back to schools and then engage students? Are there just in the classrooms they're teaching, or is there going to be new classrooms being offered? Or
there are 2 groups. One group is the one that Kristi mentioned, that they have a group of students that will be engaged in testing this curriculum that the teachers conducted. The other is when during those workshops and when they're with the instructors, they will be developing and thinking of within their course, what can they do? So if the teachers say, well, I want to do it after school club, they will be designing and tailor their curriculum focused on that. Yeah. So we want to make sure that they can conduct it, and then they can come back and then get feedback from us and continue to improve.
Yeah, and just as a note, I mean, the next generation science standards, those have been adopted by the state of Washington. And so they actually need to develop curriculum to do that they're going to use in their classroom. So this is helping them do something that they already need to do.
And I will hope this will happen more so in the classroom than after school, because after school, there's going to be, my thought is minority kids probably wouldn't be participating as much versus having it in the school.
Exactly, because we noticed like Green River, we have the Youth Discovery Academy that focused on students to middle school to explore their careers, right? But then that's not every single child can participate. Right. So this one, we do recruit teachers specifically for science teachers. But there are teachers who are not able to fit in their curriculum, but to tell us that can they also form. If they say, in their science class, they can only take a small chunk of it, but they want to do more after school, we said, yes, you can develop additional things. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Michelle.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you for this presentation. I'm wondering, after these teachers are trained and they've developed their curriculum, can they then go and share that with other teachers?
That's our goal, is that hoping that they will continue to improve their own curriculum, at the same time trying to, ripple effect, right, impacting other teachers, so our kids can all have the chance to learn. Yeah.
Councilman McCoy? please.
Just to follow up, Council President. So I'm excited to see how, or maybe, Bill, maybe we can have some update on how this is working
Yeah.
in the future and how many students maybe are engaged. I think it'll be exciting to hear that. And then we can, build on for future as well, so.
A few things contextually to think about, and Professor Morgansen's on the nodding her head vigorously, because I know part of our contract that we're discussing about is the final report, and there's an idea, or not an idea, there's a commitment to do not just a final report on how the impact is, but this is helpful for Washington Space Grant Consortium to longitudinally study over time how many students this is a strategic investment, I want to say, to tie our students, our teachers together closer to cutting edge information from NASA and getting them involved at an early stage. And I think the idea of impacting teachers and then having the teachers impact other teachers and impacting other students and making this a routine program in the summer months is a way to make sort of this space domain of education not some strange esoteric thing about our school district, but something that is, and for our community, but something that's kind of lived and breathed and understood more widely. And so I think in that case, this is an investment in equity long term.
So what would success look like with this program? How do I know if this is successful?
But actually,
Kristi, you want to go ahead and I can tag along?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to me, success looks like a couple of things. So one of them is going to be a longer term result that is just going to take time to track it, and we'll have to do longitudinal tracking of the students. On the upside, LinkedIn is a big friend for that. It's a lot easier to keep track of everybody when they're on there. Shorter term, and that's something like it'll take until they get to college or at least graduated from high school before we'll be able to say, did they go into a STEM job? The other thing that we can track, though, a little shorter term, is the next generation science standards achievements of the students. And so we can be doing assessment of the students before and after they've done the different modules in their classes, and then see how they have performed. And potentially, if I can get a different district involved, or maybe even teachers from Kent as well, the students that don't do that program, we can do comparison of effect of doing this new program versus not. And that's ideally what we want to do. So we have experience with setting this. We'd have to get permission and all this for publishing the data, but we can do that.
Okay. And then locally, I think from our perspective for Green River is that the success is looking at our community to be excited about talking about space. Our children to be aware that there is opportunity in space education, knowing that there are different entry points. It's not always you have to have a master's degree or Ph.D. in order to work in that field. Be able to connect with our entrepreneurs, knowing that there's a school district that willing to support, and the city is in support of that. Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, space entrepreneurs in our Kent Valley. So I think the success will look like that we will, next time, hopefully we'll be able to share with the 5 teachers how many classes are teaching those curriculum, how many students are willing to give us the little testimonies or their little project to show you what that looks like in the short term.
And Councilmember Carr, I had alluded to a couple other contextual things. We did a request for qualifications for support for the City of Kent and the Kent School District to do its first career and technical education plan together. We're meeting regularly with the Kent School District. We're working towards doing a plan together, and we have other investments, other monies budgeted from council to pursue additional investments in career and technical education and STEM in addition to this project. So this is a part of a larger whole. This is what I just wanted to add.
I think we have Councilmember Fetcher, I'll let you go. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I was just going to add that when we hear from the teachers and get those report backs, I would hope that it would also include some of the students.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, similar to my question. Definitely want to have some coming back to us when you think is the right time, and be interested to hear from the teacher and the students. Totally agree with that. So I think we're done with questions. So how about a motion, please?
Council President, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a subrecipient agreement with the University of Washington, providing up to $400,000 in ARPA funds for the design and operation of a teacher training program for the Kent School District, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the mayor and city attorney.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Okay. Phew. Okay. We're going to move into a workshop. How about that? Okay. Do we need a break or we good?
5-minute break?
All right. 4-minute break.
4-minute break, sorry.